This episode is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is the #1 tool for all podcasters. You can record high-fidelity audio between remote locations and get studio-quality sound. Go to Zencastr.com and use coupon code THATENTERTAINS for 20% off for 3 months or 20% off an annual plan.
Everything is Awesome is part of Quirks and Parts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelin Friends, and Podstalgic at quirksandparts.com.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. 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 That was awesome. You guys are awesome. No, you're awesome. No, you are awesome. Sir, you are awesome. Seriously. Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. Oh, this week we are continuing our Philadelphia Podcast Fest celebration with our, I believe these guys were our first ever interview we did 2 years ago, where I had more than one person on the line at the same time. And here we are 2 years later with the boys from Dissecting the 80s. That's right, Tripp and Andrew. I know I still have yet to confirm how to pronounce their last name. Laino? Laino sounds right. We'll go with that. But Tripp and Andrew come back to talk about the Philadelphia Podcast Festival. We talk movies. We talk their show. We talk the 80s. Before we get to the show, a couple things. Make sure you are checking out phillypodfest.com/schedule to look at the complete schedule. There's a lot of great things happening this weekend, including Dissecting the 80s at Tattoo Moms. They're closing Saturday at Tattoo Moms, but there's shows all day long from 1 to 7. I guess technically 8 is when it's over. At Tattooed Moms, there's shows going on at Amalgam Comics Coffee House, like All My Fantasy Children and Victims and Villains and Voice of Free Planet X, and there's shows going on at Fit Comedy, like We Got This. And there's just things going on all day today, and this whole weekend is nothing but Philadelphia podcasting gold. So go check it all out. They're local Philadelphia podcasters. There's also people who are from the area who have come back to do the festival. It's going to be a real good time. And that's all I have for the podcast festival. Let's get right into the conversation with the boys from Dissecting the 80s. Again, it was such a great conversation, and I enjoy talking movies with these guys. I'm more of a fan, and I kind of, just view them as popcorn films a lot, or just I'm just there to watch a movie that and then I'm in and out. But guys like Garrett Smith from I Like to Movie, and these boys from Dissecting the 80s, they have a little bit more of a critical eye to these movies, and it's just interesting hearing their thoughts and whatnot on these movies. Their show that they're doing at Tattoo Moms is going to be a great show, doing Roger Rabbit. I'm really, really excited for them, and I'm going to be at a wedding, so I'm not going to be able to see it live, but I wish the best of luck to all the shows performing today. And for the purpose of this episode, especially the boys from Dissecting the 80s, right here on awesomepodcast.com. So how you guys been, man? Mans? Dudes?
Good. Just busy, but good.
If you can't tell. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, was it 2 years ago?
Yeah. I was gonna say,
Okay.
and I want to say in that 2-year span, I've maybe had one or two other guests that had multiple people on, save for a roundtable discussion that I did where we had like 5 or 6 people. But so I apologize in advance for when I stomp all over one of you, because I'm sure it's going to happen.
We do it to each other.
Yeah, that's fine.
The beautiful thing is no one will hear it in post because I can clean it up. It's all good. But it's been 2 years. The last time we talked was for the 2016 Philadelphia Podcast Festival.
Yes.
Our first live show.
Mm-hmm.
So that was your first live show, meaning it was
second,
your first.
actually. First
Okay.
Philly, though. First Philly.
So that was your first Philadelphia Podcast Festival.
Correct.
Okay, so you're part of the same class as I am. I did not my first live show there, but my first podcast festival and my first live show with Everything Is Awesome in 2016. So, yeah, I think it's so neat that if you look at that schedule at phillypodfest.com/schedule, there's not like out of the 50 shows that are there, I think only a small amount of them, like maybe 15-20%, are still like that. And I don't know if they did it before 2016, but what I've been calling the class of 2016, which is a lot of like you guys, me, Full Belly Laughs, Doom Thugs, Party of One Pod, Quest for Magic and Steel. Like we all, our first live shows at least our first podcast festivals were 2016, and we kind of all started when did you guys start your show, Dissecting the 80s?
4 years ago.
August of 2014. Yeah, August 2014.
Okay, so you guys have, are one of maybe two of the podcasts that I just named that were doing at least that exact show longer than the 2016 year. But I started February 1st of 2016 is when Everything Is Awesome started, and a lot of the shows that year that were with the festival were like first time shows, and it's kind of neat that like I get to see you guys. Well, I don't know if I get to see you guys this year, but like I get to see you on the schedule at least.
Yeah.
And I get to see familiar names still doing it like for the third year in a row. It's super neat to see that, and I'm glad you guys have a unique show, so it's great that you guys are still doing it. And 4 years is nothing to like sneeze at. Like, how many episodes does that equate to?
No, we're about to hit 100. We'll hit 100 on July 2nd, and it's like kind of stupid to comprehend that a little bit because we do bi-weekly, so it's 26 a year roughly, not roughly exactly, and but yeah, it's like this was kind of a silly idea. I used to do a different podcast where I still think it's a cool idea, but I just couldn't find people anymore, where I would like have someone come talk to me about their greatest adventure, and then kind of the back half of the show I would just ask them a bunch of like silly questions, and then we'd talk about something else, like we would just discuss a thing. And like the first thing that I did was have Andrew come on and tell a story, and then we talked about the new Evil Dead movie, the remake that had come out, and
like
then
20 minutes after
when that show
it
died, we were still kind of rattled by it. And it was like maybe 6 months after that ended, I was not doing a podcast, and I was saying I really missed that. And also I had felt like at the time, Andrew and I weren't talking as much as we did when we lived in the same house, because obviously that's harder to do. So it was kind of like this perfect excuse to hang out a little bit more, even if we weren't in the same space. And yeah, it became a thing that's this really incredibly fun hobby that we've gotten to do live shows and all sorts of other cool stuff.
And that's the great thing about podcasting, and specifically, like I've heard a lot of people, especially in the last 7 to 10 days that I've been interviewing as many people as I can for the podcast festival. A handful of people were in that same boat. They're like, I just wanted to like sit down with my friend or my brother in your guys' case, and like talk more because we lost touch, or because just life is crazy, so we're not able to talk as much. And I think that's like so neat. Podcasting is great for many reasons, but that's one of them. And I think that's, even if that's your reason to podcast, I think that is the best reason to podcast, or one of the best reasons, because you're not thinking about like, am I hitting my numbers? Am I making money? You're doing it for you and the conversation and just having a good time.
Yeah, it's always just like a great, like I know that we're gonna have a nice hour-long, 2-hour-long, 2.5-hour-long conversation every couple weeks, and then there's sometimes where like we'll talk for 45 minutes and then be like, well, hang on, let's start recording. Let's talk about the stuff we have to talk about for the show, and then get back to what we're talking about.
Yeah. So this is Philadelphia is not your necessarily your home operation, because now let's see if I remember this year, because last year I got confused when we talked at Tattooed Mom. Andrew is in Philly and Tripp is in Maryland or Boston.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Baltimore.
Maryland.
Yes. Okay, I got it. I nailed it.
Nailed it. Got it. One.
Did
You got
not
there.
research it. Yeah, did not research it. I tried to map the voices, because I don't like. I can't. I definitely. If you asked me yesterday, or you blinded me and asked me today, said is Tripp in Maryland or Philly by just like a text message, I'd say fuck. I don't know. I've been able to from like we talked a lot last year since we were at the same venue. I don't know if did I perform the day that you guys did, or was I just there running things?
I think you were just running things because didn't you
Yeah.
do like a late night show version of your show?
Yeah, and I did that. I think I was on Saturday, one of the Saturdays last year, maybe Sunday. I don't know, but yeah, I did a late night version of my show. That's typically what I do at Tattooed Mom. And we're trying this year. So this year's live show schedule. How often do you guys do live shows?
Twice a year ish.
Yeah, we've done Baltimore twice, and this will be our third Philly one.
So my goal after that first podcast festival in 2016 was to try to get 6 a year in, and
that's awesome.
Wow.
And in 20, I guess if you did like podcast festival, I think we either hit that goal or we're shy of it by like one show. But 2017 as a whole, I think we hit 6 or we, if not again, 5. And then this year, every year I do a like benefit show to raise money for at the time it was Let's F Cancer, and this past year the show just did not, specifically my show, like the event went great, like everyone performed well except for my show, and everything went really well save for like some like business end stuff that I was really upset about, hence my show not being good. And like to the point where it's like, I'm done. I'm just done live podcasting. Like, and I wasn't sure. I had just, I don't know how. I mean, I guess you guys pretty much do the same format, week in, week out, and same, kind of modify it a little bit for the live show, correct?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, when we can get people to participate, we like that. So we try to save movies that are more popular for live episodes for that reason.
Okay. And I obviously this show like that we're doing right now is always pretty much the same. It's usually me, one or two other guests, just sitting around bullshitting. Like it used, especially like this year, I'm talking to a lot of guys and gals that I talked to 2 years ago, or even last year. And the conversation isn't necessarily interviewee because we've done that already. So it's kind of just having a fun, like catching up and talking about the festival. And, that's taking place, June 22nd through July 1st in Philadelphia at, various venues across the city, phillypodfest.com/schedule. When are you guys performing? Let's get that out of the way, before we forget.
Saturday, June 23rd at 7 p.m. at Tattooed Mom.
Oh yeah, you got. I don't know why I thought you were at Amalgam this year, but no, like you guys fit well at Tattooed Mom.
Yeah, it feels like the kind of place that gets the cut of our jib. We're also a pretty. Yes, yeah, and I like performing when it looks like people are about to hit me in a bumper car. So perfect.
It is. It is such a unique space.
Yeah, but we're doing Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which actually turns 30 the day before our show, which we're pretty excited to be that, simpatico.
Oh my God. I am so disappointed is the word. I don't know if it's the right word, because I am going to do something that I'm going to enjoy, but I'm going to be really upset that I'm missing that. I have a wedding that night. To go to.
Well, that seems a good reason to not be somewhere.
But that episode sounds like that's my jam.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yes, hands down. I can't believe you guys haven't done that movie in the 4 years you've been doing this show.
Yeah, we torture ourselves a lot. I'm not sure it's the smartest business plan, but that's most of our episodes. It's like, oh man, we got to watch this piece of trash.
Although I think I'm going to start instating that like once a year we do a month of good movies, because this year I got 4 in a row because I got March and April, April I program on purpose, and March I just it happened to be Heathers and Beetlejuice, two of my favorite movies. So I got to watch 4 in a row of like good movies that are shot well, that are like kind of critically acclaimed. And I was like, we need to do this more, because if I have to watch like 50 cents at the dollar store VHS tape movies every week, I'm gonna kill myself.
But the point that I don't know what point I was getting. The live shows, I try to switch up a little bit. Now after the January debacle of 2018, the first time I deviated was actually the month before, when we celebrated our 100th episode. We went to Amalgam Comics and Coffee House, which is a great venue, great space. Are you guys familiar? Have you been there before?
It's down the street from Tattooed Mom, yeah?
No, that's Atomic City. City. Amalgam is on Frankfurt, and something another. I'm not being from Bucks County. I don't know the city real well.
Okay, gotcha.
But it's on Frankfurt. It's much bigger than Atomic, and that's why it's a good. And I performed at Atomic, and I loved doing a show at Atomic City. That is a neat venue as well. That depending on what kind of show you're doing, it fits the space really, really, really well. Mm-hmm. Amalgam is much bigger. They do a lot of events. They do a lot of things in their back area, whether it's like game night or screenings, or like the Black Tribbles, I think, perform there like on a regular basis.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so they're just like everywhere else, pretty much, that we, especially during Podcast Fest time, like all those venues are, including Amalgam and Tattooed Mom and whatnot, are super like kind to the creative arts and podcasting in general. And I've done 2 shows at Amalgam. One was my late night format, which I enjoyed. It was a fun show. Everyone had a good time, but it doesn't fit that venue quite so much. So for the 100th episode, when we went back, we did an actual play RPG, and I had Jeff Stormer from Party of One come in and run a game for us. And I had like people that, from Fit and just improvers from around Philly come in, so that there were talented people besides myself. And well, no, I'm sorry. There were talented people. I am not talented. I'm garbage. But I surrounded myself with talent, with Jeff and with the improvers and Garrett Smith, who's a comedian in Philly. I just surrounded myself with funny people to make the show good. And it was such a blast. So that's when I was like, okay, let's do the January show, and then we'll see what happens. The January show was a hot mess. And then I said, I'll apply to do a panel at the Great Philadelphia Comic-Con in Greater Oaks, and we'll see what happens with that. And because we got accepted there, I applied to Wizard World, and we got accepted there, and it legit like lit the fire about me doing live podcasting. Otherwise, I would not be at the Philadelphia Podcast Festival this year, because I was that bummed.
Tell me about these panels. I'm very curious about that.
Oh, okay. So as it turns out, you don't have to be anybody special to do a panel because they accepted me. I guess it helps if you do something that has a popular topic. So for the Great Philadelphia Comic-Con, we did, and for Wizard World, we did 10 years of Marvel. And we just sat down and talked the last 10 years of Marvel. The one that was at the Greater Oaks convention, it was okay. Like there was probably about like maybe like 15 to 25 people, kind of what I expect when I go to Tattooed Mom, like kind of that basic podcasting crowd that you get. And we were the last panel of the last day of the con. So like people came in just to take a load off. And you could see they started to leave. Like I think the con was over at 5. So around 4:45, people started trickling out to beat traffic and whatnot. But it was also 2 days after Infinity War came out, so we couldn't talk about it because there was two people.
Too fresh.
No. I would have talked about it too fresh. There was 2 people in a Marvel panel that didn't see Infinity War, so we really couldn't talk Infinity War too much without spoiling it. And the whole reason you want to talk about Infinity War is spoiling it. Wizard World, I'll tell you what, if you guys, your show would probably work as a panel at at a convention like Comic-Con or like Wizard World, I'm sure there's got to be 80s movies you haven't covered yet that would fit the Comic-Con world. And I think you would have a lot of fun. I think you would be super successful at it. And as long as you kind of market it the right way, I used the title of our panel was Dark Knights of the Round Table. So I'm 100% playing up that we love DC and Batman. And then I put it right in the title. We're talking Marvel, like 10 years of Marvel. And Wizard World, we had like probably like 70, 75 people in the room engaging with us, which was the best part. Like Greater Oaks, they engaged with us a little bit, but Wizard World engaged hardcore with us and like got into it. We had a line of probably like 25 people to ask questions.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was such a good time.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I highly recommend you guys trying it out. If you like your, I guess specifically Tripp's schedule can plan on being in town when these cons are happening, because I think your premise would work, and as long as you put the name of the title of the movie you're watching in the title of your panel, you're probably going to get people to come and show up.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. It just never occurred to me that would be something like to even apply to something like that. That's pretty wild. Yeah. Good on you for the gusto.
Yeah, it's what it was is I don't know if you guys are familiar with Plus Two Comedy. They are a podcast and comedy group in Philadelphia. And Noah Houlihan is one of the hosts, and I saw that he was doing conventions, and like he does like all of them. Like you name a convention, he probably is there doing it. But like I saw that he was at Wizard World last year. I was like, wait a second. And Noah's like, I consider him way more talented than me, but I was like, Noah, I think if Noah can do it, like I can at least apply and see what happens. And that's what kind of happened. Like we just did it. We said, why not? And I highly recommend it. Like there's actually a new convention coming to town called Keystone Comic Convention. Run by
My friend is working for them, actually.
Oh, okay. So, you might have an in, but I would apply. Like if you guys could make time to get there for the weekend. I imagine they're going to be like Wizard World. They give you wristbands for at least the day that your convention or that your panel's there, if not the whole weekend. And I can't imagine I would have to imagine that they're going to make a big splash it being the first year and have like the bigger panels as well. But I can't imagine it's run by the people that do New York Comic Con. So I got to assume they're expecting a decent turnout. So they're getting most of the convention center and allowing locals to do panels as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds really cool. I would definitely look into that. It seems like something worth pursuing.
But yeah, and then that stuff reignited me as well. And it's something that I learned this year was like, I need to take what I do. Like, I don't know what you guys do for any kind of milestones or annual celebrations. I like to when I hit milestones, I like to do a different kind of thing. Like the actual play podcast for episode 100, have Batman on as a guest for episode 25, just dopey things. And then like on the anniversary of my show, I take one little thing and tweak it. So like the last time you guys were on the show, I did 2-parters. If the interview went 2 hours, I think the last time we talked, we went like 2.5 hours, and I cut that into 2 parts. And then I would do a live intro with you guys on the line with me. And both those things are out the door now. Like I don't do unless I truly need to do a 2-parter. I don't do 2-parters. I'll air it as an hour. I'll air it as 2.5 hours. And I like doing like I guess like the general show that's like mine, like the Mark Marons and the This Feels Terribles and whatnot, where they cut an intro in after the interview. I do that now. Is how I changed it up. Do you guys do anything to like to kind of reinvent yourselves?
It's not as like formal as that. We definitely have dropped some, like we have had more than once a bit that we did that we were like, oh, this will be great. And then like 5 episodes later, it was like, this is stupid and we shouldn't do this anymore. And instead of like stopping it there, we like continued it for a year. And so like we retired. Did we do hot tag taglines for 2 years?
I think hot tag was 2 years. And the best part is once like you retire it, a month later, you're like, oh God, I had a real good tagline for this stupid movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's been a couple
Yeah.
of those episodes where I'm like, could we bring back hot tag tagline just for this movie? Because I have a good one.
I feel like that's like something like you should be doing that with your bits like that you retire, and because that's like some of my favorite podcasts, like when they have bits that you don't even notice get like ghosted, like they just get ghosted off of the podcast, and then suddenly it comes back. You're like, oh my God, I remember that bit, and this is a funny bit. Like it's cool that they're doing it again.
Yeah, we haven't resurrected anything really yet for like full time things, but yeah, we did that for a while, and I think like for some reason I found it really funny in the first chunk of episodes, and maybe even a little further than that. Like when I would do the introduction for Andrew, I would just like quote old wrestler promos, and like like that idea was funny to me, and it very quickly not enough material, and then eventually that shifted into the way more logical where I like make a reference to the movie that's hyperbolic, sort of like Top Gear used to do, and that makes like so much more sense. So we've just done that since, but it was like we were just recently I'm putting together a clip show for the 100th episode, and I was just recently re-listening to some of the older episodes to pull stuff from, and I hear those intros and be like, why did you think that was so funny? Like that joke it's not even a joke. You're just saying something that someone else said once. It's just a quote. You're just quoting people. Yeah.
I see. I find that funny, but I discovered after talking to a couple of people, like I kind of like my humor is in that realm of like parodying people and whatnot, or like or maybe just like old man cheesy. Like there's this podcast around here now called Philly Famous, and of course I had to hit him up and say, why don't you spell it PH for famous? And like his logical response was, well, there's a cheesesteak place called Philly Famous. I was like, oh, okay. But he's like, also, that's corny as hell. I'm like, oh, sorry.
I honestly was like, oh, Philly Famous. It's probably spelled with 2 PHs. And as soon as I didn't even think it wouldn't be.
Right? Anytime you have anything that sounds like it could be a PH in Philadelphia, it always is. Philly's funniest. I was doing some research on that just this week to see if I could book somebody for the live show, and I typed in Philly's funniest with an F. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, they got to be using F. Like if that's got to be like the sophisticated what professionals do. Like they don't go for the corny PH. But nope. That Philly's funniest. They use the PH.
Well, they could also do a horse spinoff podcast called Philly Famous, and it's only about lady horses, and it would be F and F.
Famous lady horses.
Yeah.
Well, he does want to spin off. I don't know if that's the direction he wants to go, but if he's listening, Greg, if you're listening, that idea is for free. Or at least, I mean, I am assuming it's for free.
I mean, you just have to put the fact that it was ours at the end of every episode at equal length to the full episode. That's all I want.
Yeah.
Just have it playing in the background as like kind of like an audio watermark.
Exactly. This.
Yeah, perfect.
Copyright. Yeah, that's all we want.
So, you guys are doing Who Framed Roger Rabbit for the festival. What led you? Was it the fact that it was the 30th anniversary that led you down that path, or is it just like the first thing that popped in your head?
No, it's totally the anniversary. We always have like a brainstorming session with the live shows, and it's funny you mentioned, changing up the format and stuff. One of the things that I've mentioned at least offhand, but I've never really pursued, and it's much more complicated to do. I would love to sometime do like commentary live, like play a movie, have people come watch the movie, and we make jokes over it. So there's definitely that as like a future idea. But we have a long list of like, here's some stuff we want to do. And some of it's like, oh, if we ever get one around Christmas time, here's a couple Christmas ideas, or here's a couple Halloween ideas. But with this one, it was just on the list. And I was trying to find, okay, is there a Philly connection in any of these movies? Is there like something that we should do for this or that? And then found out the other anniversary, and it was like, oh, this is the most logical choice. It has to be this.
Yeah. And that, I mean, it's such a good movie. Like I said, I'm really disappointed. There's a lot happening on the 23rd. Like I feel like, and this isn't to knock any other schedule that's on the Philadelphia Podcast Festival circuit. I mean, I'm on July 1st. I think July 23rd is across the different venues the strongest schedule. Like there's a lot of good shows that day, and honestly, the first, and not really including my show, but the first is a good like closing day for the podcast festival.
Yeah, I mean, we're really, really excited. I was very flattered and surprised that we got to get a 7:00 time slot.
So it's a good schedule. So now you guys have done this is your third year at the Philly Festival. What like have you learned anything year to year, or and how has it differed year to year for you guys?
I don't know, it's very different for me just because I am a live performer by nature. Like I'm an actor and I do shows. Yeah. So it's just always a different format of not having a character to like do. It's just like being me who's cracking some jokes. So like if something doesn't land, it's all my fault. Like I can't blame a script or a character. So it's just sort of you read the room better each year, I think.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I also like it's not playing a character, but obviously when something is working, you lean into it. So
yeah,
we did the Great Muppet Caper for the show last year, and I love the Muppets, and so does Andrew, but I didn't super care for that movie, and so it was like causing ripples in the crowd, and eventually it was like, all right, let's just lean into it, and like the ripples are a good thing. Let's see how many more of them I can make. Until finally we had to like let someone from the audience come chime in on the show to be like, here's why you're an idiot.
Yeah, it's for me, like I don't know that I found like my sweet spot when it comes to a time. Like I tend to, and like I don't know, is it good to close the festival like at 7 p.m.? Is it better to open? Is it better to be in the middle? Like it's such a weird thing to look at, and I think about this when I'm doing the annual festival in the summer, and then when I'm booking the January festival that I do to raise money. It's like I think it's so different day to day, because live podcasting really is just kind of becoming a regular thing, and not in Philly. Like it's still not a regular thing in Philly. It's like every now and then someone comes through. So like I feel like when you're in the midday is when you get like the most traffic, and then the people that come at night are there because they want to be there. And same thing with the people that come at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like it's how do you guys feel? I don't know. Have you played different times across the various shows you've done, Philly, Baltimore?
Yeah. In Baltimore last year, we had a really tough spot because we were ahead of or after the most popular show there, and only went on when we did because they asked not to go on so late. So it was like, okay, sure. And like everybody left. Like everybody, like literally not a single person from that group stayed over. Like friends of ours did, but nobody who was just like there hung out. And so that like you literally felt the energy walk out of the room, and that was like a really tough thing, because it's like obviously it's our friends and they want us to do well, so it's not like a hostile crowd, but it was just like, oh man, that sucked. Like, oh, that stinks hard. Like that's such a bummer how that went, huh?
Well, and I purposely, like when I am able to have some control, like last year I did a lot of booking. Like I booked like every other month I would book a show, and it would be me closing and then someone else opening. But for the annual show, I very purposely, and so far every live performance that I've shared with Full Belly Laughs, it has gone, everything is awesome at some time slot, and then the show directly after that is Full Belly Laughs. So at the last, this will be the third Philadelphia festival that it happens at, and I've invited him to both of my January shows, and I book it purposely that way because I know his crowd comes in early, and I've experienced that like for years now, so I know I can get a trickle down effect from his audience.
Yeah, no, that's exactly like I booked the Baltimore one, and it was like, okay, well, we'll put this real popular thing on last. And then they were like, we don't want to be out that late. Can you switch? And so we did. And it was like, oh man, like all these people would have had to sit through our jokes, and now none of them are.
So I'll ask you this, and I don't know. I guess Andrew, you don't do too much of the booking. You're just the talent.
That is it.
So I apologize because this will probably be more directed for Tripp, but how do you find booking a show of that magnitude? That's a couple hours long, multiple shows. Like is the Baltimore podcast festival 1 day, 2 days?
It was 1 day the first year, 2 days the second year. Honestly, the harder part is like picking the acts. Like,
yeah.
We got 25 slots or 25 applications for 11 slots last year. And like, that's a lot of people you have to say no to.
Yeah.
And, my ideal goal would be like anybody who you listen to their show and they put like an actual amount of effort into it, like, you know, in whatever that form that takes, I want to give them an opportunity because that's why I started the whole stupid thing. It's not stupid. I shouldn't do that. You shouldn't demean your own ideas, folks. That's a lesson for the kids out there. It's like, you want to be self-deprecating. Don't self-deprecate. It was a cool thing I did. I should take credit. Anyway, that's the harder part of having to be like, oh my God, I have to say no to all these people. So my goal this year is more space. So I have to say no to less people. But honestly, I just try to do it by feel. Like, you listen to a couple episodes of the show, you kind of get the vibe of their thing and things that will kind of sit harmoniously next to each other. And still there's some weird stuff. Like we had a true crime podcast go right before a food podcast, which I thought would be kind of weird, but it worked out fine. Like there was the food show happened to be about something kind of silly and light, and the crime show happened to be about something that was silly and light. And they like, not that I like forced them to do that. It just worked out that way. And it was like, oh, great. Like the crime show was kind of funny, even though it was, you know, a sad story. And the food thing was like kind of lighthearted, and it just all was kind of perfect.
For me, that my first year booking. So I feel like I kind of have like a good sense of how to book, because years ago when I used to wrestle, like I was one of the guys that would help put together the show, like booking the venue and creating the card that, you know, putting together all these matches that are going to work really well with one another and whatnot. But as it turns out, that skill set does not go from like industry to industry at all. Because the first year I booked at my own event, I was like, I want to book the shows that I want to see live, because damn it, this is also a celebration for everything is awesome. So I booked like 2 actual play podcasts, Full Belly Laughs, myself, and I believe there was a 5th show. And I apologize to anyone that like the shows that I'm forgetting that first year. That was 2 years ago. I wrestled. I had concussions when I was younger. I have a bad memory, guys. But like I learned Tattooed Mom is not the venue that you use for actual play podcasts. With people that are going to drink at a bar aren't going to watch nerdy stuff.
Yep.
So I learned that the hard way, and it sucked because like there's a lot of shows.
Well, it depends on the bar, I think.
That's true. You are, yeah, because I guess like in Philly you got Barcade. That would probably work at Barcade. I don't know any other nerdy bars in Philadelphia, so I know it doesn't work at Tattooed Moms. But that was the hard thing. The second year was like, man, like these shows that I want to see, like I feel bad not booking them, but it's just, if I book them here, it's just them recording their show in a different space, and it's not really giving them the true live experience that they deserve if I book them at Amalgam or Atomic or Red Cap Games, I believe is the name of the space. So yeah, it's every year it's a learning experience, and like my thing this year is I really want to try to bring in like a bigger podcast, and I don't know, like I have feelings about that, like, you know, and I don't know how you guys feel, both as, you know, Tripp who books a show and Andrew who performs the show. What are your thoughts about, like, especially like last year was the start of Philadelphia Podcast Fest doing something bigger and bringing in outside talent that maybe was from outside of Philly or they originated from Philly and they just are elsewhere now. How are your thoughts about that? Because there's a degree of competition on especially on the 23rd. There's a lot of competition amongst the different venues and shows.
Well, I feel like the kind of the beauty of podcasting is that audiences get to be fragmented, right? Like there's such niche products that overlap is a thing, but not that you know what I mean? Like the people who would really be gung ho about Last Podcast on the Left, I don't know that like 1-to-1 a fan of that show is a fan of our show. And I don't say that with any criticism of their show whatsoever. Like I'm just like I don't know that overlap is 100%, right? It's like some people like Marvel movies and some people like indie drama. So I don't know that
DC is not even in that conversation. You just went to like the natural.
Well, see, no.
I mean, I will say, who actively likes all DC movies?
There's one, and it's Wonder Woman. That's the only good one.
Yes,
but also
you get
like,
one.
I genuinely, I kind of view those as the same product. Like I know there's like some intense fanboyism, but you're splitting like 1% of a population there. You know what I mean? Like your average person who likes movies with punches doesn't care if DC or Marvel, frankly, doesn't know if DC or Marvel owns the thing and is wondering like when Iron Man is going to show up. I think like those people exist that you're talking about, but that is like a very small crowd in terms of general population. I feel like
you think I don't know. I agree to an extent. I feel like in 2018, Marvel has really taught people that like, hey, we are Marvel. Even like separating themselves outside of X-Men and Deadpool and before Sony came on board, I feel like the MCU did a really good job of saying, hey, we're Marvel. We're not the dipshits across the street that can't put a movie together, and we're not the other Marvel guys that have the mutants. Like we're our own. I feel like they do a good job at separating themselves.
I wholeheartly agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying I think the actual percentage of audience that's like, I like guys who punch stuff and like draws a fierce line in the sand over whether it's Marvel punchers or DC punchers is not that big.
I would love to like take a poll on that because I don't know that like I necessarily I'm on the fence of whether I agree with you or not.
Because like the first Batman versus Superman was like I never saw it, but it, like all pretty much agreed like, whoa, that was a raging trash fire, and it still made almost $1 billion. And then people were like, oh, the one that says Batman was a dumpster fire last time, so I didn't go. But like as soon as Marvel has 2 stinkers in a row, that's the same thing's going to happen.
But are they going to have stinkers? I feel like they know what they're doing over there.
I mean, I'm probably the wrong person to ask because like I'm kind of done with the whole thing. Like I'm actively looking forward to the next Avengers because I get to be done. Like I just get to get off the train. Like I'm like, all right, I've made it to my destination. I hope wherever the rest of you go is wonderful. This is me. I'll be seeing you never because this train goes only in one direction. So goodbye forever. And that's like I'm very looking forward to it because I'm an old man now and I just like I can't care anymore. But other than Guardians, which I'll keep going to that until I don't want to get on that train anymore. But I did like I'm so over it. So I'm the wrong person to ask because I know other people are not. But I'm very much like, oh, it's almost here. I can see the end.
But I feel like as they're like continuing on this 10+ year journey now, like I feel like they're finding ways to tell the story and it not be the same. Like I feel like
sort of.
I don't know. Like I feel like Black Panther, that's a really unique movie. Like I don't feel like that's the same as the other Marvel movies.
See, I thought Black Panther was cool, and obviously Black Panther resonated with a segment of the United States population that is wildly underrepresented in media. And like, I'm not trying to take away anything from anybody who got a lot out of Black Panther because I think that is really, really cool. I do. I think it's genuinely cool. They're trying to do stuff for other people. But like the Black Panther story is the same as every other story. Like he was the king of all the thing, and then the bad guy shows up and then takes over for like 2/3 of the movie, and then the good guys show up at the end, and then there's a lot of punches, and then the good guys win.
Okay. So you're, I get it. You want a movie. You want a film. You don't want.
No, I genuinely enjoyed that they lost at the end of Infinity War because like this is just not the same. Like the good guys always win.
I still maintain that like I didn't need Peter Parker begging for his life.
Okay, it was a little much. It was a little much.
Oh my God. Like, hang on. Why did nobody else do this? Everyone else was just like, "Whoa, I'm disintegrating." like they were like they pulled a Marty McFly and they were like, Doc, what's going on? And instead of Peter Parker literally falling into Robert Downey Jr.'s arms and crying for his life.
It was so dark.
But okay. Let me defend that. That scene.
If you're gonna tell me that he has fucking spider sense, and that's why he knew, I've heard it before.
Well,
I also
my best
reject
friend
that
is
premise.
my best friend is the ultimate spider fan. Like, I know, I heard it.
Well, and I wasn't going to defend it with that. I agree, but that is like I've read that, and that's what sold me on it a little bit. But here's my issue with all of the snapping deaths, is that like the Black Panther 2, they're making one. Like he made $1 billion. Spider-Man: Homecoming 2.
I was like, yeah, Disney's not letting him go.
Homecoming 2 is literally coming out 3 weeks or 3 months or something after the next Infinity War movie. So like, I know that these characters aren't dead for real. Like I pray to God, spoilers guys. I pray to God, Gamora and Loki and and Heimdall. I hope that they're dead for good, because that all happened before the snap, and they should stay dead. But like everyone that dusted away, like, and this is me being an adult, like watching a film, like it's hard for me to buy that. And the argument is, well, you should be.
There needs to be stakes.
Yes, and I know that they're going to come back. And the argument I heard is, well, you're supposed to feel how the other characters feel about this. But I'm like, but why? But if I can't buy it as an audience member, why should I buy it as one of them? And then what's the second viewing of Infinity War? Taking myself out of that mindset and watching Peter Parker, he's the only sellable death that I believe, that I feel emotion for. I don't care that Black Panther dusted away. Like, I don't feel anything for that, but I feel for Peter and for Tony and for what that means to their story arc together. Like Tom Holland's like improv there sold me in a mindset of the second viewing. I was able to buy it and say, okay, at least his death, I feel a little choked up about. A little. I'm not shedding a tear, but I feel a little choked up.
The children in my theater were crying. Like they are movies for children, you know. I mean, again, no shade intended, but like I'm 31, I'm kind of like over it. Like I think I hit that point quite a lot of time. Like, yeah, of course I know there's another movie, but like there was a 6 or 7 year old boy weeping walking out of the thing, like, Dad, what's gonna happen to the Black Panther? Like legitimately crying. And I was like, good. Like he learned a lesson with like when I was a kid, kids movies were like, hey, every other parent gets murdered aggressively by a hunter. Like enjoy life, kid. And like I want that. Like these movies are too coddling for children. And I'm being facetious here, but like I thought it was bold. Like I'm just frankly, I agree with what Andrew said. Like there needs to be stakes, but also I just am enjoying the fact that they're like gonna have to do Star Trek: The Search for Spock, because they haven't done that before. Like they're gonna have to get the time stone and turn back time. And if they don't play that song, they're gonna get Cher. Yeah, if we don't get some friggin' Cher in the Marvel universe, I'm gonna be an upset boy. But like,
it's got to be Star-Lord who makes that reference.
Yes,
too.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Yes.
He can sell it.
Yes. Maybe Rocket will play it on his stereo. Since didn't Star-Lord dust out?
Yeah, he dusted away.
Yeah,
they all. Whatever.
They legitimately all of the Guardians of the Galaxy dusted, I think, except Rocket.
They'll mix. Yeah. They'll pour some water, mix him into a fine paste, and then just like smush him onto a wall, and he'll be like, "Are you Cher? Because you're gonna turn back time."
Yeah, exactly. But I
have the joke.
Go ahead.
Like my friend who's the biggest Spider fan is constantly telling me every time Marvel makes an announcement. And I was like, yeah, you know what it is? It's Avengers 4. You'll fucking see it, nerds.
Yeah.
And Avengers 5. We're still making them. Like, I get it. It's a money printing machine and I get it. But like, do something different, please.
So that's why I'm excited. Like, I genuinely have some excitement for the next movie. Like, yes, I'm just like you. I know that they're not dead, but the fact that they have to go get them is just like a different story than we've seen before. And it's like, oh, like I haven't seen that 65 times, because every Marvel movie is like, I am the best at punches, and now my punches are so good, I'm going to punch away the whole city or the whole world or the whole whatever. And it's like, they're all, when everything is an end of the world scenario, nothing feels like it matters.
Well, and that's what I like about what Fox looks like they're doing with like the New Mutants. Like they're turning that into a horror film, and that's what I want to see more of. I want to see.
I liked that idea until I found out that they were reshooting the entire
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Well, yeah, because they only cut the trailer to be horror, and then they realized, oh, people like this.
I was so pumped to see like a scary mutant movie, like something different about it. And then I was like, oh no, they're reshooting everything because they pulled a Suicide Squad. Oh boy.
Well, and I'm hoping that we still get something that's good from that. And at the very least, I think it's something that studios should and filmmakers should look at and say, okay, like this is the next phase of how we're going to tell these stories, like so that people don't get tired of seeing like, you know, the same thing over and over again. Is let's like I think The Winter Soldier does a great job at telling a political spy thriller just with a superhero skin. And the hopefully New Mutants does a good job at telling a horror movie with a superhero skin. I want to see that. I feel like Star Wars is trying to do that with their a Star Wars films movies with Rogue One and Solo. Like they were trying to tell a war movie with a Star Wars skin, and they were trying to tell, I guess, like a racing heist movie with a Star Wars skin on it. I like that. I like that mindset. I think that's like what these cinematic universes have to do. Otherwise it's going to, now I'm not tired of it yet, but I'm a big old nerd for this stuff. But I feel like to stop the nerds from getting tired of it, they have to put those, tell other genres with the superhero skin.
Yeah. I mean, the Star Wars thing is a different kind of thing to me, because I find it baffling that they were like, we have this unbridled, unencumbered galaxy in which to tell stories. So let's only tell stories about people named Skywalker. And like the fact that everything has to tie into each other is such a snake eating its tail thing to me. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, I also love when they were teasing Solo. They were like, and you're going to find out where his name came from. And I was like,
whoever cared?
Thought parents. Crazy enough, I assumed his parents gave it to him. But, you know, sure. Let's see some smuggling situation where someone's like, you really fly solo, kid. And then he puts on a pair of sunglasses and screams, yeah!
You know it's dumber than that, right?
Oh, it has to be. Is it? What is it?
No. Do you have you seen it, Kevin? I don't want to ruin a thing for you.
Yes, I have seen Solo.
I have not.
I have not seen it, but I heard this scene, and I like literally I can't believe this exists in a mainstream like $300 million movie. He walks up to like an immigrations person, and they ask him if he's with anyone, and he says no, and he goes, "Solo, huh?" And that's how he becomes Han Solo.
Shut the front door and get out of my house.
That's an actual scene in an actual movie that actual people wrote and then actual people approved. Like the chain of command that is involved in making not just a movie, but a Star Wars picture. Like, oh my God, it's like 52 people had to be like, this is worthy of our audience.
They're also
time
the
and
people
dollars.
who said, hey, Donald Glover, stop improvising. So they don't make
Well, they fired the first two directors because they're like, hey, you guys are hilarious, but this movie is getting too funny, so you can't be here anymore. Let's bring in the guy who's the equivalent of wallpaper.
Yeah, let's bring in your mom's favorite director for her book club books.
Oh my gosh. I love your takes. I love them.
I never saw the movie, so like Solo could be great, but just that whole like backstory drama stuff with Ron Howard and the Phil Lord, Chris Miller guys, I just found that like insane. Like that whole thing was categorically insane to me.
I'll keep my thoughts on Solo brief because I've talked about him before on a recent interview with somebody else. But it's a movie that I think is super enjoyable. It's super. I mean, if you have Movie Pass, it's definitely worth it. Like Star Wars is typically worth it just paying the real money, but Solo is definitely like well worth a Movie Pass ticket. And it's a fun time. I think it's an enjoyable movie. It's if you kind of look at it as its own film, it's a really fun flick and a really good flick. But when you think about what the implications are on the greater universe and Han Solo in particular, it kind of like you can start pulling it apart and whatnot. But I don't know. I kind of am in the mindset of as long as they're not putting 3 Star Wars movies out a year and they try to keep them about 12 months apart, which they didn't do with this. But if I'm getting 1 Star Wars movie a year, I feel like everyone should be going to them because they're Star Wars. And I think Star Wars is it's worth your watch. Just don't have high expectations for it. And definitely like if you have like a little sibling or spawn of your loins or like a nephew or niece that you can take to see it, that was special for me. Like I was able to see it by myself on opening night and process it as I wanted to process it. And then I was able to take my kid who's 6 to go see his first big screen Star Wars experience. And yeah, it kind of sucks that it's not a saga film and it kind of sucks that it's not maybe one of the originals, but I didn't have that either. I had no first time viewing of a good Star Wars big screen movie as a kid. I saw Attack of the Clones and I was a teenager. I could drive. So I didn't get that experience. So to see my son have that experience was so special, and he has no preconceived knowledge. He's seen New Hope, he's seen Empire, he's seen half of Return of the Jedi. He doesn't know who Han Solo is though. Like he knows the character, he knows he's cool because dad likes him. So to see him see this kid play his own take of Han Solo and not have a preconceived notion of who Harrison Ford is as Han Solo was so neat, and to see him gush about the movie meant the world to me. And that's what I think. I mean, and I guess, you know, I think Tripp, you said it earlier, like these movies are made for kids. They're not made for us anymore. And I got to see that firsthand.
They were never made for adults. Like they were always for children. It's just that we were children before.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think Solo is definitely like worth a watch. Like, I don't, and this is, I know it's like, almost the hour, so I don't want to keep you guys too long if you don't want to stay up too late. So I'll kind of keep this next thing quick. I have to assume that you guys and maybe not, have you invested in Movie Pass?
Yeah, we both have it. I actually just saw Hereditary tonight.
I need to see it. I need to see that one so bad.
Dude,
terrifying.
I no bullshit sat in my car for 5 entire minutes in silence after that movie in the parking lot, just like trying to process it. I have not had that kind of overwhelming negative dread terror feeling in a movie in a very long time. Like I genuinely don't even know to recommend it to people. Like I just like, what? Don't do that. That's not good.
Oh, see, I already have a thing. I'm going to go see it with a boy, so that's going to be real fun.
Yeah, no, that is a terrible idea. That's literally the worst date movie.
I saw it Monday night by myself, and I think I had the same experience, except like not in a glowing way. I had it in like I saw it and I was like, huh. That like I'm not sure. Like I want to see it again because I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like here's I think my main issue with it, without spoiling anything for Andrew, is I feel like it had a slow setup. Like I felt like
yeah,
for
I mean
me,
it's a slow movie. It's a slow movie.
Yeah, and I had just seen Ocean's 8 a couple nights before. Which have either of you seen it?
No, but I mean I would.
I fell asleep during it, and now I will say I had a very relaxing massage beforehand. So maybe I was just and I was tired because I had like 3 nights in a row. I had done like 6 interviews. So I was really tired from staying up nights before, but it was like a Friday night, really relaxing massage that I fell asleep during that because it was just amazing. And then the fiance and I went to go see Ocean's 8 thinking like, okay, like I love the Ocean's movies. This is going to be good. And same issue. It was a slow start. And I fell asleep during all the action. So I don't know if the action was worth it. And I think that's my issue is back-to-back movies had kind of a slower start. And honestly, like the way Tripp just kind of explained, like, what the fuck did I just watch was what I had, except like what the fuck did I just watch? Like I need to see it again to like get a clear conscious of it, because I think my issue is everyone said how great it was, and I went to go see, I'm going to see this amazing movie, and I built it up before I went to go see it.
Yeah, I mean, that happens to everybody.
But Andrew, go see the movie. I think it's well worth it. I would like to hear what your thoughts on it after you see it.
Yeah, I definitely I love horror. It's like I absolutely love horror, so I can't wait to go see it. And I think Entertainment Weekly said it was like one of the scariest movies they've seen in years. So I was like, okay, cool.
I don't know. I think, I guess Get Out isn't really scary. It's just kind of...
It's tense.
Yes, it's
Get Out's more like a thrilling, tense movie.
What was the movie that came out earlier this year? Oh, A Quiet Place. Like that. I guess that's also tense.
I want to see that too.
Oh my god, you haven't seen A Quiet Place yet?
I haven't yet. I'm terrible.
Oh my god, it's that. Tripp, have you seen that?
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I enjoyed it for like the 90 minutes, but I didn't think it was like the greatest gift to.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are polar opposites on these two movies then, because A Quiet Place is, I feel it's so good. It's I don't think it's as good as Get Out. I still think Get Out is the better horror movie, but damn, that's a good movie. I highly recommend.
My problem with A Quiet Place is the audience learns a thing like legitimately 45 minutes of movie time before a character in the movie learns a thing, and the whole time, and I don't want to go further than that because Andrew hasn't seen it, but just like, I think you know what I mean, probably.
Yeah,
yeah. And I'm just like sitting there screaming, like, learn the thing. Why did you teach me the thing if the character isn't going to learn the thing? And I just like, I couldn't stop screaming at the TV internally. Well, not the TV, but the screen internally. I was like, I hate, like, that is like a movie nerd thing, but like, I cannot stand that type of like blatant foreshadowing where it's like pointing out a thing with a neon sign for the audience. And then, the character is like, and I just find that lazy. Like it's like the movie wants me to think I'm smart, and it's like, no, you pointed at it with a laser pointer for an hour. Like, of course I knew what it was.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of wish they kind of didn't do that. I'm trying to be sly about it, but yeah. I know what you're saying, and I do. That didn't ruin the movie for me though. But I am the thing that I've noticed talking to guys like you and Andrew and Garrett Smith, who does I Like to Movie, and Dan Scully, is like I am a terrible person that should like I sometimes write reviews for movies, and I probably shouldn't, because I generally have a positive outlook on things and want to like everything. So I generally like, and I also am not super analytical of movies. Like I kind of go in with very like with no intense watching. Even when like I'm sitting down to do a round table about it, it's rare that I'll put my science classes on to really like analyze that movie, and I should if I'm going to review it. But
I mean, I see what you're saying. Like I have definitely ruined movies by like picking at the logic of them. I don't even like my beef with it is not even like the logic of the thing. Like I think the solution that is arrived to in that movie is a good, entertaining one that works. It's just that like they showed us the smoking gun, and I was like, okay, well, I know what the answer is now, and now I'm like twiddling my thumbs waiting for that to happen. And it was just like a movie making thing, right? Like because like a lot of people have poked flaws in the logic of the movie, and it's like I have no interest. I'll buy into the logic of your movie as long as you set up the rules. Like this is one of the things we talk about on our podcast a lot, and it's like, especially when we do horror movies, like, if you want me to buy in, teach me the rules, and then follow them. And so, like, as long as you do that, like, here's the world in which this movie lives, and then we follow the rules the whole time, it's fine. But as soon as you set up the rules and then you break them, it's like, well, wait, that's not how you said it worked. And then, like, I can't turn off that part of my brain. So, like, that's like our big credo every time we do a horror movie. It's like, teach me the rules and then follow the rules. That's all you gotta do.
I want to imagine that the whole time you and I have been going back and forth about this movie and skating over it, that Andrew's just sitting there going, la, 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 la.
That's what I would have done. I would have unplugged my headphones.
So, all right, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer because we're all East Coast boys, and it's getting a little late. I have a couple of final questions before we get the final promotion in for the festival. Sure. Okay, so what has been, and maybe I'm hoping that these are different answers. What has been your favorite in the last 100 episodes of your podcast? What's been the favorite one you guys have done?
It's a very good question.
And then I have a follow-up question.
Like our favorite episode?
Yeah, what's your favorite episode? Not necessarily favorite 80s movie that you've done, but favorite episode you've done.
I have two.
Okay.
And
let's hear
they're
them.
both recent. The first was first one I'll say is Beetlejuice, because Tripp is like a notorious Tim Burton hater.
Okay.
And it was really, and I like went like, well, I'm gonna have to defend this movie for the next hour and a half. And it turned into like, oh no, like Tripp has a deeper appreciation for Beetlejuice after like discussing it, and like he was like, oh, this is actually really good. Like turns out like I can categorize the Tim Burton that I don't like.
Okay, that's neat.
And the other one I liked, I think we just had the most fun recording, was One Magic Christmas.
Okay, explain this movie to me.
I don't know if I can explain this movie. So it's basically, so it's imagine if someone who speaks like Cantonese is trying to relay the plot of It's a Wonderful Life to someone who speaks Japanese, and that person, the Japanese speaker, is then trying to write an English movie.
Okay.
So like the ideas are kind of there. Like there's some mysticism, there's some angels floating around, there's some magic happening, and Santa's there, but it's not quite right.
It also has like one of our, just like, it turned into a like riffy character. Like I'll answer your question in a second, but I think like this is a perfect example of when we really get going on a movie, we start riffing on a thing. And Andrew did this really great impression of Harry Dean Stanton plays an angel in that movie, and he's drunk all the time. And so Andrew was doing this like really goofy drunk voice, and it like turned into like we just wanted to talk to the drunk angel for as long as possible. So like that was a really fun riff. But like this movie, the main character is Mary Steenburgen, who people would know from Step Brothers and Last Man on Earth and all sorts of stuff. Her dad died the year before at Christmas time, and her husband is losing his job in the week between Christmas and New Year's. So she's the only working person in the family, basically. And she's like trying to make a Christmas happen for her kids, and also pack up her house, and also prepare to move and uproot their life, because their house is like company housing. So when he loses his job, they also lose their place to live. And so like, as you would imagine, she's like not having a great day for a while. And the movie actively punishes her for not like going whole hog into the spirit of Christmas. And it's one of those movies where, spoilers, Santa is real, which like is always really tough logic to defend, because in that world, like if Santa was real, he would be thought of as an asshole.
I want to imagine a world where people listening to this, like, we just ruined their lives by spoiling that there's no Santa.
But like it's
also a movie where we see Santa is real. Like a child goes to visit him in the North Pole and sees the lists and like sees everything. But it's the same movie where the parents are stressing over how to get presents for their kids. And like we said it in the podcast, but like those two things can't exist in the same world. Yeah. If Santa is real, then he brings presents, and we can shut up about presents already. Like I don't get it. Yeah. I don't get it.
Right.
I don't get it.
But like that's also the truth of like, if he was real and ignoring children who were just like fine, you know, like I get the whole naughty or nice list, but there's like just meh kids, and like what do they get? And if they don't get Christmas, is he a dick? Like probably, I think, right? You know, so we were talking about that. I'll also pick a recent one because I hadn't watched the movie in 20 years. The Karate Kid is trash, and I had like the most fun going hard on that movie, and Andrew like kind of having to play the defender on it, not wholeheartedly, but like in some ways, because I was watching
devil's advocate, we'll say.
Yeah. But I thought that episode, like, it was like almost, I think it was like an hour and 40 minutes out, which is like probably our longest episode of all time by like a good margin. And I was like, you know, cutting some stuff. And I was like, I'm going to put this out. I want to see what people think. And we've had like more than one person chime in and say how much they enjoyed that episode. And like, we're glad it was full, like the whole length and all that stuff, which is really dope. But I had a great time and like finished the podcast, like felt having like exorcised a demon that had been living in me, that I was like, oh man, like I got rid of my Karate Kid anger in that episode.
All right, and to follow up, and what is your favorite 80s movie? And I guess I want to kind of maybe even quantify as what's your favorite 80s movie that you haven't done on the show yet that you want to do one day?
I always talk about Adventures in Babysitting because I feel like that was my first 80s movie I ever watched and like really resonates with me.
Yeah, I think that would be a fun episode.
But also
too.
Gremlins.
Yeah, that's also very good.
We want to do a Christmas show and like have a live show on Christmas
Okay.
Or around Christmas.
and do Gremlins
Yeah.
for that. Around Christmas, yeah. Because I have some things to say and some questions about gremlin biology that I feel like have to be asked.
Yeah, no, I've spent a lot of time taking mental notes. Like, oh man, one day we're going to talk about this bad boy. Another one that's probably like going to be difficult. So one of the things I think is really interesting is rewatching movies that you already have an opinion about, and like sometimes having your view really shattered because, like, you know, I don't know if this happens for you, but sometimes you rewatch an old movie and you find that movie's point of view something that may have resonated when you were younger or dumber or whatever, and then you're watching it now and you're like, oh my god, like this movie has a terrible point of view about women or minorities or whatever. Yeah, and so like two of them that I'm like deathly afraid to rewatch because like I am almost positive that Say Anything is going to be like the biggest gaslighting adventure that ever happened. I haven't watched that movie in like 15 years, and like I like that movie, or I did like that movie quite a bit, and now it's like when you rewatch that, I bet you're going to hate it. Like I bet you're going to think Lloyd Dalber's a piece of shit. And another one along those lines is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like I've heard many people say that like Ferris Bueller is kind of an a-hole, and like I love that movie as a kid. I watched it every time I was homesick, so I could like basically quote the whole thing. Yeah. And I really like. I think if I rewatch that, I'm going to think Ferris Bueller's a monster.
Well, and so we recently rewatched that when it was re-released in theater, like a year or two ago for the 25th or 30th anniversary.
Yeah,
or something. And I don't know. We watched it and we enjoyed it. Now, I don't know how it would feel to rewatch that movie, not being a white male. Maybe you have a different opinion and maybe you think it's awful. I can't think of anything that off the top of my head that would like make that movie awful. But I also, when I rewatch older things, I try to put in my mind, like, got to remember this is a product of the time. And while, and I guess it depends on the degree of awfulness. But I think it's hard. Like it's hard to look at like comedy albums and movies and even TV shows from yesteryear and really like fault them for being a product of their time, unless it's something that's like blatantly awful. Like, you know, if the movie is promoting that it's a good idea to speak hate speech against a certain group, then obviously that's a terrible movie. That should have been a terrible movie in the 80s. But if it's like, I don't know, I don't want to say something and then sound like I'm a monster. So I'm not gonna.
I think it's even simpler than that though. It's like I totally agree with what you're saying. Like there are lines in these movies that you're like, that line was not unacceptable then, but it's mostly like when the joke is like throwing around the F word or like really demeaning women, it's like all of the jokes aren't jokes anymore. You know what I mean? And so it's not, it's not even like, oh, it's a sign of its time. It's like, oh, the whole central conceit of this is now no longer funny to me. Like, I'm just not going to laugh at a joke where the punchline is like one guy knocking another guy on the ground and using a gay slur against him. Whereas like somebody might have laughed at that in 1988. And I'm not saying that person, I mean, that's not a good thing that they did, but like the prevailing culture was shitty. And so that's what they laughed at. And so like, it's less that and more like, oh, that's just not a funny joke. And then I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs while watching this air quotes comedy.
I had an experience, and not necessarily like that, but I had an experience with Ghostbusters when that came out, 2 years ago. They re-released it in theater for the anniversary. And I had an experience, watching that, saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I was allowed to watch this as a kid." Like, it's not like I wouldn't let my 6-year-old son watch that movie, and I know I watched that movie when I was under 10, and I don't know that I would let my 10-year-old nephew watch Ghostbusters, the original. There's some strong language and some like adult themed conversation and jokes in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. We were always a house where like swearing and gunplay was fine, but if there was a nipple involved, you weren't allowed to watch it.
Classic American household.
Yes, truthfully. Yeah, so like it's when you were like talking about Ghostbusters, like there's nobody naked in Ghostbusters, and it's really fun. It's like I was like, what is he talking about? Nobody gets naked in that movie at all. Like Dana is kind of scantily clad when she's Zool, but it's not like overly. But like, oh no, they do swear like a lot of times in that movie.
Yeah. And it's not even just like the swearing is fine. Like my kid, like, I mean, I've taught my kid how to do the middle finger, and like he knows there's a line that he can't cross, and sometimes he can do it and we can all laugh about it, and sometimes he's a smart kid. He knows not to do it in school and whatnot. And I like to like kind of take the Kevin Smith mentality and just kind of like free flow with my language. Like he did that. I don't know. I might as well be like a disciple of Kevin Smith. I follow him so religiously, but like back like 10 15 years ago, like when he would talk about like driving and talking with his wife in front of his kid, who was a toddler at the time, like they didn't hold back, and she didn't pick up that foul language at all as a child. And my kid's very similar, where he doesn't, like, he'll say it in the privacy of our home because he thinks it's funny, or in grandmom's home or something like that, but he knows in public that's a line you don't cross. My daughter, on the other hand, is she's an asshole, and I love her to death, but she's straight up like, I'm going to get the principal called on her, and I'm going to be brought down, asked why she curses and why she gives the finger to the teacher and stuff, because she doesn't know how to hold back.
Yeah, that's a tough situation.
But that's why, like, it's I don't know. So it's not necessarily the cursing in Ghostbusters that I'm like, it did shock me. Like watching it for the first time in years, it did shock me. I didn't remember it, but there's a couple jokes that I'm like, oh my God, like I don't know that I let my kid watch this, and maybe it was part of the language. Like I want to say, like they dropped bitch around a few times, at least once, and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe they just said this like this is a kids movie.
Yeah, it's I guess, is that probably pre PG-13?
Gremlins was the first PG-13. Was the reason for PG-13.
Okay. Yeah, so the Ghostbusters is before that. It definitely would have been PG-13, but I think it's only PG.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I mean, I'm shocked they haven't gone and like re-rated those movies to be PG-13 and whatnot. But okay, so my promise to get you out early has failed already, so I apologize.
Fine. That's all right.
Let's talk about the festival show this year. Remind everyone where you are, when you are, and what you're talking about.
So Saturday, June 23rd at 7 p.m. at Tattooed Mom, Dissecting the 80s is taking on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We aim to find out the answer to that question and more live at Tattooed Mom.
And that is part of the Philadelphia Podcast Festival, the 2018 one, the 6th annual festival. You can find the complete schedule on phillypodfest.com/schedule. It's a Tattooed Mom has been the venue I've never been to any other venue for the podcast festival. I've never been to any other festival venue for the festival, and but Tattoo Bomb is a really great place. I don't want to make it sound like Amalgam's not, because Amalgam is a great place. I've done shows there, but as Tripp said earlier, there is a show for everyone to go watch, and I highly recommend checking out Dissecting the 80s. I was able to watch it last year. These guys perform live so well. So check them out at Tattooed Mom. Make sure you come check us out at Tattooed Mom. You're closing the first, what I call the first official day of the festival, because there's a show on the 22nd, but that's just like a one-off, a good comedy. The first official day is at Tattooed Mom and Amalgam Comics on June 23rd. You're the last show that
We
day?
are.
Yeah, so you guys are closing day one, where everything is awesome, is opening the last day of the festival at Tattooed Mom on July 1st at 1 p.m. So come check us out. We're going to be doing our late night thing. As I think I started to mention at the beginning of the show, I'm trying to approach late night a little bit more seriously this year. So we're hoping to have a little bit more of a scheduled monologue. We're hoping to have some fun bits to debut, maybe a fun game to debut with the audience. And I'm working hard on booking some great guests, and come close out Tattooed Mom and the Philadelphia Podcast Festival on July 1st. It's going to be a fun time, and I believe Full Bailey Laughs is giving away a drink, so you should probably contact them to see what they're giving away and how you have to enter to do that. Guys, thanks for doing the show, and we'll have to have you guys on when it's not podcast festival time. We'll have to have maybe a little fun movie discussion episode on Everything Is Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So thanks once again,
Thank you very
and good
much.
luck at the
Thank you
festival.
so much. You too.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having
Yeah,
us on. We
we're
appreciate it.
great.
Oh, dissectingthe80s.com if you want more of our stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Get those plugs out before I hit stop recording.
Yeah, and you can also check out my queer web series, Who the F Are These Guys? EFF on YouTube. It's free.
Oh God, they're creating so much free content for you guys. You have no reason not to check it out. All right, big thanks to Tripp and Andrew from Dissecting the 80s for being on the show. I enjoyed the conversation. I can't wait. I've only seen them live when it comes to the festival last year, and that's it. I didn't see them the year before. I'm not going to see them this year, and I would really like to see them live more often. I know they do a show down in Maryland, the Baltimore podcast festival that they actually run. So it will be, and I actually want to go down there for that. I feel like that would be a fun time. I need to talk to them about that. But anyway, I digress. I think they should be doing more live shows, and hopefully they take the opportunity to do so. As the podcasting scene continues to grow in the Northeast here, specifically in Philadelphia. There's a couple ways you can support this show. I know that you're here listening to me an hour and a half in, and you're still here. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. It means a lot to the show. And it's just fantastic that you stick around this long to hear me kind of say the same thing over and over again. But I try to have new nuggets in there, and right now it's all about the podcast festival. So the new nuggets are few and far between. But if you continue to support this show, or you want to continue to support the show in other ways, you can do so in a few different ways. You can go to our patreon.com/thatentertains, and you can subscribe to our network, which is more than just Everything Is Awesome. You get all the shows that are part of the podcast network. You get anything that gets ever created on thatentertains.com. For free, obviously, and you usually get early access and things like that for as little as $1 a month. So, if you can do that, great. If not, then you can also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and review. That is very, very important. Those ratings and reviews help more people discover the show, and when more people discover the show, we get a bigger listening base, and we have a bigger listening base, we can go and do panels and stuff, or we can go and do more live shows. It just helps us kind of grow in this landscape of podcasting. And of course, word of mouth recommendations are also another great way to help us out. Just tell a friend about the show, throw us on while you're on a long car ride, and I can guarantee you an interesting conversation, and hopefully a unique one with the guest that you may not get with another show. They may, it may be a standard interview. I try to do non-standard interviews. Anyway, so thank you again for listening. Make sure you come out to Tattooed Moms on July 1st at 1 p.m. We are kicking off the festival, and I was hoping to have news on guests this week. We are waiting for a few confirmations from people to see if they can make it out or not. As it turns out, it's hard to book a show the weekend before July 4th. Everyone's on vacation. However, don't worry, because we are going to still be playing games. We're going to be playing Food Fright, where we have 4 food challenges. And I announced them, and I believe the last show, Oreo Challenge, Bean Boozled, and the Pocky Chip, and a donut challenge. And all those challenges, we're going to try to have sponsored in some way, so you can win cash, you can win gift cards. I've already announced Mind Escape as one of our sponsors for the prizes, and I can also announce Tattooed Mom is one of the sponsors for the gifts. So you'll be getting a $10. You can either win a $10 Tattooed Mom gift card or a $30 Mind Escape card, amongst other things that we're still in the midst of finalizing. So be sure to come out July 1st to hear me and Mike sit around, gab, do some late night, talk to some amazing people, some awesome people, and also give you, the listener, some cool prizes from local Philadelphia, South Street businesses. That's all I got for you now. Have fun at have fun at the Philadelphia Podcast Festival. If you can make it, it's all weekend long. Tattoo Moms and Malcolm Comics Coffee House are the two big ones on the 23rd, as well as Fit Comedy. And then there's continuing into Sunday at Tattooed Mom. And I believe there's another venue as well. You can go to phillypodfest.com/schedule for the complete schedule of the Philadelphia Podcast Fest this year. And of course, This Is Everything Is Awesome, where you can find us on Twitter at RealAwesomePod, but you can find me on Twitter at ThatNerdyKev, where I do most of my tweeting and stuff. And you can also find us on Core Temp Arts as part of the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network at coretemparts.com. And we are on awesomepodcast.com, where we do all of our business. That's our homepage. That's where we live. And you know what? We've been awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Core Temp Arts shows, visit coretemparts.com.